Good morning, everybody. This is Keith Yang of AuctionPoint, and welcome to everybody on the call. Thanks for taking time out of your busy day today to learn about AuctionPoint and how AuctionPoint is going to help you sell your properties. As most of you know, AuctionPoint runs 2 commercial auction events each year, and today we're going to be talking about the Q4 event. You should be able to see my computer screen right here and my mouse moving around. And the Q4 event is underway in terms of collecting assets. And I just want to show you here what we're in store for. So I'm going to scroll down to the event timeline. And you'll see that right now we are in asset submission mode. Through the 16th, we are speaking with brokers, sellers around the country to aggregate a number of commercial real estate assets to offer to the public. And we do this twice a year. The Q4 event is designed for owners who wish to close their deals by year end. Beginning in mid-September, you'll see that we're going to launch our initial list of properties or release it to the public. And that's when the fun begins. That's when AuctionPoint is going to start a nationwide marketing campaign advertising the auction event as well as each and every asset in the event. And during this time, all the brokers out there who are participating in the event are going to get phone calls from interested parties, are going to arrange for inspections, and the goal is to have all of the buyers complete their due diligence within this 2-month period prior to the online bidding occurring in mid-November. And if everything goes correctly and you've identified the high bidder, then we will move into a contract period and an escrow with the goal of closing these deals by year end. So after the bidding occurs, you will have identified the high bidder and be able to transact or close that transaction in pretty much the typical way that you're used to doing right now. So during this 2-month period, what is AuctionPoint doing? When we talk about marketing, how are we marketing the event? And so I just want to show you a couple of pieces from our last event so you have an idea of what AuctionPoint will be doing. And I've just put on my computer an advertisement that we took out in the Wall Street Journal in April of this year advertising our Q2 event. And you'll see that it's general advertisement about the entire event, asking people to come to the, or asking buyers and investors to come to the event to check it out. We've also, in the past, and we will do so this time, taking out specific advertisement for your individual listing. So we'll take your individual listing and notify everybody that it's part of the event and drive buyers to the site in that manner. And let me show you some of the results of our last marketing campaign. And so what I've put on my computer right now for you to look at, and you don't need to get bogged down in the details here, but it's a sampling, or actually the line items of every single ad we took out as part of our Q2 event. And we expect similar advertising to be done this go-around. And I'll save you the details and take you right to the bottom line. In Q2, we put the event in front of 26 million subscribers. That means that we made that many impressions across the country to buyers, investors, brokers, owner users, etc. Of the 26 million, we know that a little over 50,000 people actually came to the auction, and about 5,000 of them actually participated by registering for the auction. And I'll show you how that works. So now, imagine that you are a buyer. So let's all of us put our buyer hats on, and we've been hit with this advertising about commercial real estate auction being conducted in November. And so if you are interested, you will come to the site, and it's going to look something like this. So this is a sample property list, and you'll see we're actually starting to build out some of the properties that are part of the Q4 event. And when you are a buyer and you come to the site, you'll see this property list, and you will be able to sort it by region or by property type. So if you are a buyer of office properties, For instance, you'll click here and you'll be able to sort through the office properties. And if you want office properties in the Midwest, you'll be able to further drill down. I'll restore it back to the full list. Or you can do a quick search. I know Kathy's on the phone right now, so let's see if I want to find, I'll use her last name, Kathy's listing. I'll be able to do a quick search and find her Grand Canyon commercial property that way. So we make it very easy for buyers to come to the site and look through our inventory of product. Now, when a buyer identifies a particular listing that he or she is interested in, they will click on this Details and Bidding button and be taken directly into an auction website. And some of you have seen our auction websites already, but this is what it looks like. So if I'm a buyer, this is a sample site, by the way. If I am a buyer, I found this listing that I'm interested in, I've clicked on Details and Bidding, and I'm taken to an auction website that looks like this. And one thing you'll notice is at this point, AuctionPoint is kind of behind the scenes. The broker is front and center. If it was Kathy's listings, her name would be right here. This is a test listing for Sperry Van Ness. But now I'm a buyer, and I'm able to see the basic information about the auction. I want to take a minute here to talk about the starting bid. I know that we've had discussions with many of you about the appropriate starting bid to use, and the goal at the end of the day is to float a starting bid out there that's going to be super attractive to the buyers. So if there's income on it, we want to see a high cap rate. If it's a land listing, we want to see a low price per square foot or price per acre. But we want the buyers to realize this is a serious seller, and we're going to be considering offers at this, for instance, here at $23 per square foot, which in Orange County, California, is a tremendous bargain. So if I'm a buyer, I get tempted by this property and by this starting bid, and I want to find out more. So now let me click on this Due Diligence tab. And at this point, our system stops the buyer because we want that buyer to register for the auction so that we capture his or her contact information. And so I've set up a test buyer account, buyer@test.com. And let me just log in as the buyer. Now the system has recognized who I am and has let me in. And now I'm looking at the due diligence materials. Had it not recognized who I am, it would have asked me to register. And by registration, we are asking for basic contact information for the buyer, name, email address, etc., and whether this buyer is represented by a broker, or maybe it is a broker, and if it is a broker, who are they representing? So we're trying to organize this data and save it for you to use later. Now I'll take you back here to the due diligence room. Here is where the buyer is able to conduct all of their due diligence prior to the date of the auction. We want the buyers to be well educated, and we found that the more due diligence you upload, the more comfortable they are with the asset, the lower the risk profile of the asset, and therefore the higher the pricing is going to go. And so the more you can load up, the better for the buyers, the better for you. Now, property details. Now that the system recognizes who I am, it's giving me more information. So at this point, I get to see interior photographs, more detail about the property. Offering memoranda can be posted here. A richer description of the opportunity is presented. And finally, a purchase and sale agreement is posted directly to the auction site. Now, why do we do that? We post the purchase and sale agreement because we want the buyer to know if they win the auction, this is the form they are going to be signing. And the form typically requires a non-refundable deposit of some amount. So we want the auction to have some teeth. if the bidder wins the auction, there's going to be no negotiating on the PSA. This is the form they are going to sign within 48 hours of the end of the auction. Now, how to bid is pretty self-explanatory, but for brokers, what is that tab all about? About half of the traffic coming to our sites are actually brokers who are representing buyers, and so we don't want to preclude them from participating. And the first thing they're going to ask is, what do I get paid? And so we put it right here out in the open. Whatever the procuring broker commission is, we state it right here on this tab. Okay, now let's say that I am a buyer. I've done all my homework, and this is a very intriguing opportunity. I want to bid. I want to bid on auction day, which here has been set for November 12th. I click on Get a Bidder Number, and it's going to ask me to post what's called a winner's deposit. And the winner's deposit is simply an amount of money that goes hard the moment I win the auction. In this case, it's been set at $5,000, and I can simply put a hold on my credit card. So just like a hotel might keep your credit card and make sure you have enough credit and place a hold on it but not charge it, we do the same thing with that $5,000. And we do that for everybody who wants to participate in bidding. And if they end up being the winner, we know that they're into it for at least $5,000 or whatever we set this amount for. And let me show you what the auction room looks like on auction day. So now I've taken you to a website that's actually been set up to be running right now. And you'll see that bidder number 6176 is the high bidder. And it's saying that the next bid increment is $10,000. So I'll go ahead and, just so that you can see with your own eyes, show you what that looks like. So I've entered in 214, click the Bid Now button. It's going to ask me to confirm. And when I hit that confirm button, you all should see a yellow flash. Now I'm the high bidder. And this goes on until the end date, which here we've set to 9:30 this morning, or 5 minutes after the last bid is made. And what that means is that if somebody comes in at 9:29 and makes a bid, the clock will automatically reset to 9:34, just to give everybody ample opportunity to type in their bid and to keep the bidding going. And this keeps going until there's 5 minutes of silence. And here you'll see that the reserve hasn't been met yet. We talked about the starting bid. Most of you know that the reserve price is the price at which the seller is obligated to sell. So the bidding is going to keep going until that reserve price is met. And once that reserve price is met, we have a deal. Now there are situations where the reserve is not met, and we'll talk about what happens in those situations in a bit. But that's kind of the buyer experience and what the buyers are doing when the auction is taking place. Now let's, for a minute, take off our buyer hats and put our broker hats back on, or our seller hats. What are we doing during the auction process and while all these buyers are coming to this auction to check out our listings? One of the things that we try to do at AuctionPoint is to really understand what's going on with your auction prior to the bidding date. And so I've just put up on my computer something called Google Analytics, and we embed each one of the auction sites with a special code which allows us to monitor website traffic coming to the site. So every time we send out an email blast or take out an advertisement, we can check the traffic coming to the site. So how many people are visiting? And by the way, we work hand in hand with the broker. So if a broker tells us that he or she is sending out a blast on Thursday, we'll watch what happens on Thursday, and we'll monitor the effectiveness of certain advertising or certain emails or mailers. And we're doing this to make sure that we're getting enough coverage. You're seeing the actual traffic across a 5-week window for an auction that was run back in 2009. And at the end of the day, this is what we're interested in. This auction had 749 visits from 439 unique individuals. And that's a nice, healthy number. And what do we do with that? We analyze where are they coming from, what are they looking at, how long are they staying on the site, are they looking at the due diligence materials? So we gain a lot of information by understanding the traffic coming to the site. Secondly, and I'm going to click on a page, you should see AuctionPoint here in the upper left-hand corner. And what this is I'm actually taking you behind the scenes now. This is what the brokers, AuctionPoint, and owners have access to during the auction period. You'll see auction information up here and user information. Auction information is simply how we build the auction websites, and we'll handle that for you. User information is what you should be interested in. This is the list of everybody who's come to the site and actually taken the time to register. And at this point, the beauty of it is that the broker now has full contact information for the registrant. You will not only receive an email instantaneously when they register, but you'll have access to this list 24 hours a day. And you can export this to Excel spreadsheet, but at this point, the broker should be communicating with each and every one of these brokers to find out who's real and who's not. And do they need a property tour? And actually pitch them on the merits of the property. A lot of these people may have some level of interest, but they really need to speak to you in order to understand why this property is such a good deal for them. Okay, so that's the list of registrants, and you saw that 439 people came to this particular auction, and we had 60 to 70 people register. And I'm going to click on this button next, Qualify Bidders. What is that button? That is the list of all of the registrants, and I can organize it by who has been authorized to bid. And so you'll see that of the 60 to 70 people, we had, in this case, I believe it was 11 of them have put down their credit cards, and now they're ready to bid prior to auction day. And that will give us, the broker, the seller, and all of you out there comfort that when the auction clock starts ticking, there will be some activity. Not only will you have access to this data, but the broker should have had conversations with each one of these folks and be able to tell us who they are, do they have the source of funds to close, and are they logical buyers? How high do we think they're going to bid? So we have all of that intelligence prior to the date of the auction, which gives us a lot of comfort that the auction will be successful. And sometimes we don't get comfortable and we need to make adjustments to the price, or we need to postpone an auction, but we can make various adjustments based on what's going on during the marketing period. Okay, so while we have our broker hats on, let's also talk about what else the brokers are doing during the auction. Here at AuctionPoint, we make a big deal about having brokers involved in every single one of our auctions. And the broker plays two critical roles during the auction. I showed you here that the broker is at the bottom of each one of the auction websites. So the broker serves as the primary point of contact for all buyer inquiries. The broker will arrange showings, share market information with the buyers, and work with us to make sure that the auction websites are complete. The broker also continues to conduct local marketing. Now, remember, AuctionPoint is doing a national marketing program, regional, statewide, but at the very local level, it's the broker that understands who the right players are. And many of your assets are going to sell to local buyers. We want national participation, but we also want local participation. And so what does the broker do to make sure that the local market understands that the auction is going on? And I'll show you, it starts very simply. You do what you do best, things like signage. You'll see here, I just put up on my computer, this broker has taken the old sign and simply put a big rider over it. Instead of it's for sale, make me an offer, now it's for sale by auction, come to the auction website. You will also modify the language in your flyers. So here's a sample flyer. Now, instead of for sale, it's for sale by auction. We list the starting bid, we list the auction date, we list the auction website address, and you'll notice you can send people directly into your own auction. You don't have to send them to AuctionPoint, you can send them directly into your auction website. And we lean on the local broker to notify the community through flyers, email blasts, updating your local listing services. We want to make sure that no stone is left unturned. We'll handle the marketing at a very high level, nationwide, regionally, statewide, but at the very local level, I'm talking about knocking on doors and making cold calls and sending out flyers to the Chamber of Commerce. We will lean on the local area brokers to handle that. We will lean on the local area brokers to handle all buyer inquiries, because at the end of the day, you guys know the property much better than we do. You know the merits of it, and you know the market. So before I end, let's talk about pre-auction sales. Because after all, we're doing all of this to sell your listings. Now keep in mind that sales don't just happen on bidding day. I'm going to take you back to this test auction. What happens if I'm a buyer, I like the property, I've done all my homework, but I don't want to wait until the 12th? I'll probably pick up the phone and call the broker and say, can we make a deal prior to the auction? And the answer is absolutely yes. Now, it's not going to happen at 9:85, and the broker will have to give some guidance to the buyer as to what an acceptable price might be. But when we look at all of the closings that happen through AuctionPoint, a full 1/3 of them happen prior to the date of the auction. And that's a great thing. We're generating all this interest. There's a sense of urgency created, and 1/3 of the closings will happen because a buyer stepped up prior to the date of the auction. Now, the other third, another 1/3 of closings happen because people bid on auction day. And that's also a great thing. You get to watch the bidding in real time. You have a history of who bid what, and you've got that $5,000 non-refundable. And so that's a great way to sell your properties. Now, what happens if this auction that we're looking at right here ended right now, and I was a high bidder at 2140? The reserve has not been met. That means that the reserve has been set at a level higher than 2140. We may be just slightly off, $10,000 off, or we may be $1 million off. I don't know. But the rest of our closings happen post-auction. That means that the auction has ended, the reserve has not been met, and what we typically do in that situation is the broker would contact me and say, Keith, thanks for participating. You were the high bidder. Unfortunately, the reserve was not met, but I'd like to write up your offer and present it to the ownership. And so I may sign a contract at 2140. I may also tell the seller, I'm willing to go hard on 10% right now and close in 30 days all cash. And very likely there will be some post-auction negotiations, some back and forth, and oftentimes a deal is made after the auction has ended and a reserve has not been met. So sales will happen before the bidding date, during the bidding window, and in the post-auction period. So please keep that in mind. And I'd like to, at this point, end the webinar, but before I do that, I'll leave you with this. AuctionPoint is a very powerful and effective way to sell real estate. However, as you can see, it does take quite a bit of work on behalf of the broker and AuctionPoint to generate the proper level of interest. But when it's done right, AuctionPoint will expose your property to a national audience, and if it's a saleable asset, it's going to result in fair market value for you and your clients. So thank you for listening. At this point, I'm going to turn off the recording.